The internet has made it easier than ever to start a business. Succeeding on the internet, now that's another story. The big question is, what are those who are succeeding doing differently? This podcast has the answers. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix podcast. I am your host, Lisanne Murphy, and I am joined today by the incredible, talented serial entrepreneur, Timothy Dick. Timothy, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a great introduction, a lot of energy, so I can tell we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Oh, we are going to have an absolute blast. You have no idea how much our listeners love just digging into the nitty-gritty of these businesses. So for people that aren't as familiar with you, I want to take a second to introduce you and then give you a chance to tell your own story. All right. So okay. Tim has a vast background in SaaS and was one of the first executives at Hostgator in its earliest days. Hostgator grew to host millions of websites with hundreds of employees before Tim transitioned to focus on is it VOIPO or is it VOIPO?
It is pronounced VOIPO, spelled okay. VOIPO, so both.
Okay, cool. So both. That's awesome. Okay, so I'll just read that sentence again. So Hostgator grew to host millions of websites with hundreds of employees before Tim transitioned to focus on VOIPO. He is also an active angel investor and consults for multiple investment firms on M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions, startups, and strategy. He was born and raised in rural West Virginia and the son of a coal miner and was a first-generation entrepreneur. He is passionate about small businesses, resourcefulness, marketing, and personal development. So, and I had the opportunity to get to know Tim a little bit on the social media creeping that we all do on each other, right? Before we had to be on this podcast today. And we're both involved in PodMax Global today, which we're super excited to have the opportunity to have that connect us. And guys, this bio does not even do justice what Timothy's bringing to the table. So I'm excited to get into his head and pull out the genius that is there. So again, thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So Timothy, going from rural West Virginia to getting into entrepreneurship, and now you've moved across the country, you live in California, and you are an entrepreneur working in the online space. That is a long bridge to cross. Give us the backstory. How did you get here?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. I mean, just like anything in business and entrepreneurship is, so I'm 34 now, and if we go way back when I was 13, 14 in middle school in rural West Virginia, again, very small town, not really a lot of jobs and things there, a lot of great people, but very small area, rural, one of the best jobs that, most parents really want their kids to grow up to get there is to be a coal miner, because it pays pretty well there in comparison to most other options because of the, dangers and hazards of it. My dad and my grandpa, and for generations, that was what kind of the, from a family of coal miners, and my dad worked in coal mines, sawmills, things like that. And just from a really young age, I had I just felt different, and I had a lot of people, picked up on that, and from a very young age, I apparently had told told everyone, when I would see things on TV, I'm like, I'm going to be in California or New York or somewhere. And they're just kind of like, okay, be realistic. You're probably not, no one in our family does that. It's kind of the, they had good intentions, but just had never seen it happen. The only, only even extended relatives that I have that had, had moved away from the area were, a few cousins that maybe joined the military, did some things like that, but no one had really been entrepreneurial. So I got on the internet and once I got on the internet, the floodgates open, and I thought, I'm going to actually do something. And I pretty quickly realized, and even back then, this was kind of, like late 90s, early, ending in the early 2000s. It was kind of during the dot-com, the second half of the dot-com bubble. And, I got on and I started making websites and doing computer repair around town. I would make flyers, put them up. I put ads in the newspaper. I did all of this, and it was all self-taught, because one of the things that I think is really important to remember is just that you don't have to know everything in the beginning. You just take things a step at a time, and you can figure things out as you go. So like when I started doing computer repair, I knew that I wasn't able to do everything, and I was, again, like 13 at the time. I knew quite a bit and most of the common stuff, but I always thought, what, if I can't fix someone's computer, then I just won't charge them for it. I mean, simple. And so I did all that, got online, and basically the transition from like middle school to high school was the 6-figure period. And that's where, I was started making 6 figures by getting into web design, self-taught. And I'm not a programmer, designer, or anything like that. I know enough tech to speak on the business side of being involved with tech, but it was self-taught. And so here I was in the middle of a small town, making 6 figures in middle school. So kind of became somewhat of a local celebrity, the cover of the newspaper, the high school's internal newspaper. Actually, the April Fool's edition was one about how I had bought the school. So basically there, everyone was just, crazy, because I was basically making 6 figures from middle school ever since. I mean, since middle school. And so from making websites like that, one of the biggest things that I realized is that we were in a very small rural area, but the internet opened up the possibilities to do business with people in other places. And I don't even think at the time, I doubt any of them knew that I was 13, or 14, or, whatever it was. But, I could get things done, and that was kind of, a little bit of a sacrifice in a way, looking back, like, because, I didn't, like, after school, I was on the computer working and learning, weekends, things like that, so in a way, I kind of skipped a lot of the typical school things, but definitely wouldn't change that. But what happened is we're in this small area, and I started getting all these checks and money orders showing up, and PayPal had just come out at the time, and so it was like this new thing, and I'm like, I need a new bank account, and like my parents were just so confused for a while. They at the time did not really use the computer. They didn't really have any interest in it. And, this was back like in the dial-up days, and I had my own phone line separate from the rest of the house, so wouldn't have to have someone call in and interrupt my download, and all my parents knew was there were all these checks and money orders and lots of money coming somehow. And I was spending all this time on the computer, and beyond that, they had no idea. And so there was some tension a few times, because they're like, are you doing something illegal? What are you doing? Like, to them, it was just kind of a foreign concept that you could connect with people on the internet and they would send you money.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I think my parents still feel that way about me sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so that from there, what kind of naturally, I just continue to grow and just figure out, how I could continue to increase that. And I, found a natural progression with website design to web hosting, which, for anyone who doesn't know, web hosting is basically kind of like the it's kind of like the server space or the cloud that the website is stored on, so that when you access it from home through the internet, it connects to that equipment, to load the website. And the reason that I was drawn to web hosting is because anyone that has a website needs it to keep their website online, and it's recurring, so they have to pay their bill every month. And I learned very early on, like, it's nice to be able to, make like $5,000 or $10,000 at once, but it really adds up when you can take, take a bunch of people and get a subscription from them for, maybe $20 or $50 a month, but they continue to pay that each month, just to have basically space on your server. So I got into the web hosting industry, had started a small website hosting company. When I graduated high school, I moved to upstate New York, and so I moved to New York, and it was really just because I really wanted to get away from West Virginia at the time, honestly. Again, a lot of great people there, but I wanted to see what else was out there, and basically merged my web hosting business kind of into a larger web hosting company. And basically at 19, I was the VP of business development, and everyone involved was fairly young, so but that led to meeting someone on a message board. We didn't really do social media back then, but message boards were big. So there was an industry message board. That's where I met my friend Brent, and he had at the time just started Hostgator. He was down in Florida, and I was very formal back then. It's funny to go back and look at my writing, and I'm actually way more formal and detailed and stuff then than I am now. But he asked me to join Hostgator and help him with, some of the business stuff, because it was starting to really take off. He had started it from his dorm room, all of that. He's 3 years older than me, so I would have been, I guess, 20 at the time. So this was in 2006. Joined Hostgator, and no idea that it was going to happen, and he didn't even know. But I moved down to Florida, and Hostgator just took off and exploded. We had just a handful of people, and we within. I only lived in Florida for less than a year because we just outgrew the area, and we were having issues hiring people. We were growing so fast because honestly, Florida, is mostly a retirement destination, or we were also in Boca. So even like the teenagers are generally from very wealthy families. So like they didn't want a customer service job, and it was difficult to hire there. And so we moved to Houston. We just picked the city that had a really good business climate, not weather. Houston's weather, I'm sorry, but it's just bad. And but for business, low taxes, real estate, cost of living was low, all of that made sense. So we went from this tiny little office, it was like 1,500 square feet in a strip mall, with like at the very end, we had like 30 people crammed in there, multiple shifts, and we were out of parking spaces. The landlord there was like, "Hey, you need to move," and all your people are taking up spaces, so some people had to park at the grocery store next door, But we made it work, and then we went from that 1,500 square foot tiny space to Houston, and Brent actually bought a 35,000 square foot building, and it had tenants on a few of the floors. It was a 4-story building, and so we thought, we'll have the top floor, and the other floors are leased out. It paid for itself. It was a good investment. So we moved there, and within just a short few weeks, we started hiring, and we hired at one point, I think we were hiring over 100 people a week.
Oh my
So
goodness. I can't
we
even
were
wrap my
so
head around
busy.
that.
Yeah, we were so busy that for customer service, it was kind of like take a typing test, and if you can type fast enough, you're hired.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you have a pulse and you can type and it's legible, deal.
Yeah, and so eventually, once we got situated, we, got a little more formal with that, and we would have people come in we would do like a training class, and you had to graduate the class to, be fully hired and all that stuff. But, I focused there on, helping get a lot of the initial operations up. Like, I hired the first bookkeeper, the first HR person, all the administrative type roles, and, helped establish processes and, just basically operations, and dealt with all the unique stuff. It was a very wild and crazy ride because we honestly we didn't know everything at the time. I mean, and we were aware enough to know that we didn't. So we just, figured it out. We weren't perfect, but, we went on to basically host millions of websites, have, like, I mean, it fluctuated, but I think at the peak, I think Hostgator had about 1,200 employees. So,
Wow.
And during that time, after a few years, the founder of Hostgator had said, "Hey, why don't you go start another company?" And I was like, I don't really want to. I'm kind of, I kind of like what we're doing here. Things are good, but it was his company, and so it was his baby. And he basically convinced me because he was very all in with that company, and we didn't have any VC or outside investors, or the only debt that we ever had was a mortgage on the office building. I mean, so we didn't have any of this external stuff. And so he was kind of like, if something ever happens to the company, I'm kind of screwed. So, yeah. So he convinced me to start another company, and basically just said, "Hey, I want you to start something. Really don't even care what it is. Start it. I want to invest in it. And I just want, a minority stake in it."
Interesting.
And so, it took a little while, but that's how I started the Voice over IP company. So he invested $1 million, started it, built out a phone network nationwide. And at the time when we were building a phone company, an internet phone company, the iPhone didn't exist, 3G didn't exist, none of that. I mean, we had our Motorola Razr flip phones back then. That was the trendy thing,
I
but
remember wanting a razor
yeah.
so bad.
And the thing is, like, we felt that there was a natural progression because we're looking at Hostgator. It's, again, a very heavily subscription-based industry. Love that, but knew that phone service had a couple things. Number one, it's much more broad because everybody needs a phone. And number two, it has a higher barrier of entry.
Interesting. Okay, so okay, but before you transition over to
Yep.
the phone company, so I remember Hostgator. What happened to Hostgator? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, actually, because it's Hostgator. So I had when I transitioned out, and he continued to run it. I was still kind of involved occasionally for, like I would help with like M&A and things like that. So I just love M&A and very detail oriented. But he eventually got an offer that was just too good to refuse, and was bought by a company called Endurance International, EIG. They were basically they started from an investment fund that just went out to buy hosting companies. So they bought Hostgator, they bought Bluehost, they wanted to own all of the major players that they could, and they spent $2 billion doing it. So
Wow, that is
so
amazing.
HostGator was what I can say. I mean, it's public now, but what I can say is it was a couple $100 million exit.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so fun. Well, especially with you being involved in M&A, I'm sure you're just like, that's juicy. That's the good stuff right there. I love it.
You know, that's really what got me, not the final deal. I wasn't as involved with that, because I had kind of already transitioned and actually had moved to California because I hated Texas, and HostGator remained in Texas. But so I was involved a little bit, but like we were a fast growing company. We had a very good reputation. So people were trying to buy, invest, do all these things all the time. Like it was like a constant, like it was not uncommon to have at least every day several emails from potential investment funds saying, hey, we want to invest, we want to buy a minority stake, we want to buy you out, we want to do this, we want to do that. But we were looking at the long game. And Brent in particular, he just said, unless I can make like just an unreasonably crazy amount of money, like I'm good, like I don't care to sell, because we had seen so many companies that had bought companies and then kind of ruined their reputation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but I learned a lot, so I did a lot of exploring, negotiating, and learned a lot about M&A during that time.
That's so cool. That's so cool. All right. So one more question about your past, and then let's talk about VOIPO. So what did a middle schooler do with 6 figures? Like, did your parents make you put it in a savings fund, or did you buy like all the warheads and fireballs that a middle schooler could ever want, or what?
I was actually very, very conservative, really. Like I wanted to save and invest and, do all this stuff. And the only thing that we had as far as like a disagreement about really with money, or I guess it was kind of not about money, but one of the things, for whatever reason, and I know the reason now, but back then it made no sense. Here I am like like making 6 figures, middle school and high school. My parents would not let me get my driver's license until I graduated from high school. And I know now that, they were afraid that they felt like they were losing me in a way, because I was making at one point, more money in a month than honestly they were in a year. And they didn't know what I was going to do. It was kind of just this crazy thing. So they were trying to protect me really, but I always was really frustrated with that, because I'm like, I want to buy a car and I can't even get my driver's license. So, that was the only thing. But no, I was investing, I was saving and putting money back into the business. I learned very early on that, if you advertise, I did everything for the computer repair and web design. I put classified ads, I put display ads in the newspaper, I put, did online advertising. I back then, we didn't have a lot of the same ad platforms that we have today, but we had some different ones back then. And I just really invested the money back into the business. I had hired some contractors to do support while I was at school. And just, I was very, very frugal and invested the money. So
That's so awesome. That's so rad. Your like mental maturity is like blowing my mind. Like it's seriously so great. So fun.
Yeah, along those lines, I don't remember this, but I was told this by my parents that once they have no idea where I would have even heard or thought about anything remotely like this, but apparently when I was in kindergarten, I threatened to sue the teacher because I wanted to know what law gave her the right to make us take a nap, and she couldn't tell me. So, and I'm 5 years old at the time.
This is
like, where did I hear that? Because it's definitely not something I heard from my parents. So I guess it was on TV or something.
Oh
You
my
know?
gosh, that is seriously the funniest. I love it.
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I guess from a young age, I always felt different, and I always just in school, it was just always very easy for me. And
Yeah.
that's actually another thing that, I was lucky, and part of it is being from a small town, in that in middle school and high school, the school principals and administrators and teachers were very supportive. And so, there were a lot of times the business teacher at the high school, that taught accounting and all those types of classes, Jenny Jones I was really close with her. And I actually got to the point where I had like a little desk and workstation set up in the back of her corner of her classroom. And so when I would finish work in other classes early and stuff, I would just it was just kind of an understood thing that I would just, make my way out of that class and go into her room and, go back to my workstation and just quietly work.
That's amazing. I
And
love
so they
it.
were very supportive, and without that and the support and flexibility that they gave me, then I don't know if things would have happened as quickly as they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it takes it, I love how Josh this morning, Carrie said, how like, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, like you never do it alone. Like it takes a
Right.
community to support you. So I love that. Okay. So let's talk about now. Like what pies do you have your hands in right now?
Yeah. So now, I still have VoIPO, which is the phone company. So with it, VOIPO, that industry's matured and changed a lot. But we're 14 years old, and it's again, subscription business. So it's recurring revenue, very steady. We have about around 100,000 in residential customers. And believe it or not, people still use residential home phone service. They order every day. And we do have some business services where, for that company, we're really pushing more into uh, more unique business services. So instead of just like a traditional phone line or a business line, we have like cloud phone systems where you can set up all the menus, extensions, and all of that. But it's all in the cloud on our servers, and you can use an IP phone, a regular phone with an adapter. It's like an old analog phone or an app, to get your calls. And we're pushing into tying that into. We have two new products that we're hoping to launch this year for that company. One is uh, a a business messaging platform, because text messaging is huge, not just from like a send out messages for marketing purposes type of standpoint, but also just a general conversational type service, where like a live chat, on a website where you talk to, someone at the business. Basically, we're incorporating that into text and building basically a platform so that you're able to have multiple people logged in on a website and be able to field those chats that are coming in through text. So you can have a two-way conversation with your customers, because the open rates for text messages are huge.
Yeah, like 90%.
Yeah, and that's like email back in the day, and it's like now, email rates, like, I mean, if you can get like a single digit percentage, that's good. And also, one of the other things is the speed of opening is very high. Like, most people, even if they don't respond immediately, most people, when they get a text, they look at it, within a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big thing. And so we have that. And then the other thing that we're doing that ties in with some of the other cool stuff is really around using the network that we've built, because we've built this network where we have massive amounts of phone numbers, and we do hundreds of millions of minutes. So we have this established network. We just have to build software on top of it for businesses to tie into to do cool things. So kind of like Twilio and some of those companies are software companies that use a phone network. We have our own network that we have built over time. So we can add some of those services. So one of the ones that I'm excited about besides the messaging app is analytics, and for marketing, and in particular, to be able to do things like generate phone numbers on the fly dynamically. So like on your website, maybe you, instead of putting like a phone number on there, the phone number that shows on the site would dynamically just instantly generate, so that depending on the type of marketing, what ad someone clicked on, where they came from, they would see a certain phone number, and then you would be able to run reporting to say, okay, they clicked on this ad because that is tied to that number.
Oh my gosh, that is so smart. That is so smart.
Yeah, and there's so many cool things like that that you can do and integrate it, because, I mean, as you know, with marketing, I mean, there's so many times that, like, say, like, someone has like a Facebook campaign or Google campaign or whatever it is, but what do you do if someone clicks on an ad, but then they go to the website and they call in? And how do you know that it came from that ad? Because they called and ordered. So being able to tie that in, or even right in Google, having like the phone number that shows up, be a unique phone number, and it could be unique for the tied to a specific ad or platform or whatever criteria you want. Or if it's like a higher dollar service, like with real estate, you might want a dedicated phone number for every single lead, because you can get them you might pay us 50 cents for the phone number monthly. They all route wherever you want, but you're just using it for tracking. And then another example of a really cool use case is, I don't know if you ever looked for, like, say, like a service business, like a plumber or something online, and you see there are some sites that they have a local phone number on it. So you think, okay, I like this local, I need my sink fixed fast, I'm going to call them. And they may have, it may just be a call center that will dispatch someone, but they have like unique phone numbers for each city. So like basically that's another thing, is like geo numbers. So like you can put code on your website and basically have the phone number be a local phone number based on the visitor's location, and it all routes to the same place. So
wow,
excited about doing that. Beyond that, I do a lot of consulting with small businesses and with like M&A, venture funds, things like that. And as part of the consulting company, we really look at the whole business, and the company's called ProfitLayer, because I feel that businesses have many different layers, and all of those layers are important, for the business to be successful. And even within each of those layers, like you may have like your marketing layer, your operations, your fulfillment, all of those all have to be working. But then within each, there are more layers, and it's almost infinite. So like within the marketing one, there are different types of marketing. There's paid ads, there's Facebook, there's Google, there's YouTube ads, there's going on podcasts, there's like putting out content, there's general business development, there's sales calls, there's so many things that you can do. But the key is, if you can do all of those things congruently, and figure out what the best layer of things is to combine, you can really drive growth and hit, generate more profit for the company. So basically, under the consulting company, I started running into people some people were coming to us saying, I just want to grow, I need marketing. And, I had learned marketing basically building my own companies. I hadn't used an agency or anything before. I had always just managed it, spent millions of dollars on AdWords, in particular back then. So it was kind of a thing, but there was such a need, because we saw a lot of stuff. I mean, I know you're in the agency business, and so you probably see a lot of this too, but we just saw a lot of mismanaged accounts, and where people were wasting a lot of money, but they didn't know what to even check to see if they were wasting money, because they just assumed that the agency they were working with would manage it well. So I ended up acquiring an agency to basically build that out as a division of ProfitLayer, and have like, you know, a team of great media buyers. We're multi-platform. We do programmatic, native, placements. We do YouTube, Google, Twitter. I mean, we do a little bit of everything. And it doesn't mean that every customer gets everything, though. It's kind of like there's that consultative approach. Like, let's see, based on your business, your product or service, what your goals are, what are the best things to do and combine. And the metric that we're focused on is, are you making profit? Are you making money? You know, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how cheap your leads are, or, you know, all those numbers that are kind of like vanity metrics. You know, at the end of the day, it's like you have to look at the big picture. So we take a consultative approach, look at the big picture to help make sure that we're doing the right thing so that people make more money. So like with a good example of that is, like, a lot of people would think, you know, think that that's obvious, but when you're an ad agency, you're typically judged on your metrics. You know, so it's kind of like, what are the costs per click, cost per acquisition, and all of that. And we do things like general business development kind of stuff. So we may set up like a joint venture or a partnership deal with someone completely unrelated that happens to have a big email list of their clients that will send out an email to promote our client's product, or we'll help them get PR and you know, get media attention. A lot of agencies don't do that if that's not their core business, because it's not going to show up as a metric, you know. And so we're kind of taking the approach of like, our metric is, are you making more money? You know, how, because all of that, you know, can kind of influence, you know, things. So we work with some great clients like the Harvecker Group, Jay Abraham, you know, a lot of people in personal development space, but also others in, you know, everything from finance to realtors, fertility, mental health, farm accounting software. We got a little bit of everything. So
that is so cool. I love it. Well, and it sounds like you really like tailor your packages to meet the customer's needs. And so I love that approach. And there was something you said when you were talking about the new products that you have coming out this year. And I want to reiterate, like, as a Facebook advertising agency owner, the name of the game is attribution, right? Like it's proper tracking and attribution. And so the fact that you're creating a solution where people can associate a call on a website back to an ad, that was the connection that I made. Yep. I think that was what you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, like that is so big, and such a solution that really changes the game, because math is really the success to a business. And so unless you have the proper math and understanding how a customer comes in and how many contacts it's going to take to turn into a sale so that you can make money, and what all your costs are associated with that, it's really difficult to make business decisions. So Timothy is creating, it sounds like, a suite of capability to allow you to get the right math in your business.
Because especially when we really see a lot of times where people may need to see a Facebook ad, and then they might Google you, and then they may see a YouTube video, and they get retargeting, and then they read about you in a magazine, and they may not purchase anything until all of that happens. So how do you tie all of that together and be able to accurately know that even though all that worked together, if they hadn't clicked that first Facebook ad, they would have never gotten to any of the other steps?
Yeah.
So
So smart. So smart. Oh man. I could talk to you about that and dig into that for
absolutely, yeah.
hours and hours. I love it. Okay. So what are you doing currently to market your business?
Right now, we are pretty much all referrals, word of mouth, because we actually turn away more clients than we take right now. Uh, our biggest criteria is just that we're really good at scaling stuff. So, we work with a lot of people that maybe they have something that's selling. It's just not selling as much as they want, or they need to scale up. And we have experience managing 6-figure a month ad budgets. So we work with anyone that has something that's selling. That some clients have budgets as low as like $5,000 a month, and some have a couple 100,000, and then we have a few that are kind of like, as long as you're making profit and you're hitting these numbers, it's unlimited. And some of them it really is. So like, we have course creators that they're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for their courses. And even with the pandemic that we've been going through, online services and businesses that were already online, or ones that can pivot and go online, um, they're still seeing growth.
That's amazing. I love it. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, it has been fascinating to see how the online world has shifted with the pandemic and everything like that. All right, well, I've got one question for you today, Tim, and I think our room is going to cut us out, but we'll see how far we get.
Yep.
So my question for you is this: what small marketing strategy or tactic has made the biggest difference in your business, and why?
So one of the biggest things is really being consultative and preeminent. And that's something that I learned from Jay Abraham, the concept of preeminence. And that's really basically being very consultative and proactive, and really getting to know your client, what they need, what their goals are, and realizing that there is no one size fits all solution. And just because a certain tactic works well for one business doesn't mean that that's the best thing for everybody. So you want to be preeminent and let people know what all of their options are that you recommend. And it's almost like getting a prescription. You go to the doctor, you get diagnosed, they give you a prescription. You don't go in and say, hey, I have this problem, I want this medicine.
I love it. Well, Tim, that is so exciting. And I'm super excited to have our listeners understand that more. Guys, catch him more on our long episode. Thanks again for being on the show,
Absolutely.
Tim.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been great getting to know you a little bit, and getting to talk about some really fun stuff. And yeah, I appreciate you having me.
So my question for you is this: what small marketing strategy or tactic has made the biggest difference in your business, and why?
So one of the biggest things is really being consultative and preeminent. And that's something that I learned from Jay Abraham, the concept of preeminence. And that's really basically being very consultative and proactive, and really getting to know your client, what they need, what their goals are, and realizing that there is no one size fits all solution. And just because a certain tactic works well for one business doesn't mean that that's the best thing for everybody. So you want to be preeminent and let people know what all of their options are that you recommend. And it's almost like getting a prescription. You go to the doctor, you get diagnosed, they give you a prescription. You don't go in and say, hey, I have this problem, I want this medicine.
I love it. Well, Tim, that is so exciting. And I'm super excited to have our listeners understand that more. Guys, catch him more on our long episode. Thanks again for being on the show,
Absolutely.
Tim. How can people get a hold of you, follow your journey, find out
Sure.
more about what you do? How do people do that?
Yeah, so people can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, any social media platform really. Timothy Dick, Dick. They can also look for ProfitLayer, ProfitLayer, Layer. So ProfitLayer.com, ProfitLayer on social media, or the ProfitLayer podcast. So all of those are available. And yeah, just for anyone, I love business. I love the game of business. And so anyone that, wants to connect, feel free to reach out to me on social media, and, we can go from there.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, this is Timothy Dick, the man, the legend, the entrepreneur. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and letting us dig into the details and sharing so much about your business and the impact that you're making on the world. It has been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And, I know that we're running out of time here, but I think we could talk all day about this stuff. So really,
I think we should schedule that for sure.
Yeah.
I love it.